This is the show all about science facts, philosophies, conspiracy theories, and personal stories. Welcome back to Breakout Boredom, the show where we talk about stuff and you break out of boredom. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about ghost stories. Just get my chair. Okay. आज हमें accompany करने वाला है रजवान because Dave is still out there somewhere.
He's just gone. He just disappeared.
रजवान ऐसे डेमोनिक
Don't
रेल
know.
में
हाँ
उसके सामने एक्चुअली ना ऐसे
committed one too many
ऐसे
sins.
आग रखा है, आग है पूरा उसके सामने, रिचुअल परफॉर्म कर रहा है वो.
थोड़े 15 मिनट mark में you'll see his skin boiling. But just ignore that. That just side effect है.
Mm. Okay, so this is the first story. I found it on Reddit. It's on the subreddit No Sleep. तुम लोगों ने देखा है कभी?
Experience किया.
Sure. And it's absolutely terrifying, the stories you find there. ठीक है, so I went on to No Sleep. मुझे एक story मिला है. ठीक है, it's written by a Reddit user named Sam Hasem, SAMHAYSOM. ठीक है, and it's an incredible story. ठीक है, so here's how it goes. There's a protagonist. ठीक है, the protagonist is 10 years old. So there's this kid. ठीक है, this kid lives with his parents, like lived with his parents until about 6 months, like 6 months ago, his grandfather passed away. और कुछ टाइम बाद उसकी ग्रैंडमदर उसके साथ उसके घर पे रहने के लिए आ गई. सो शी लाइक द ग्रैंडमदर वाज क्वाइट अलोन, लोनली फील कर रही होगी, इसलिए शी माइट हैव कम टू लिव विद द चाइल्ड एंड द फैमिली. तो उतनी भी लाइक द ग्रैंडमा वाज क्वाइट लाउड, cheerful, fun. ठीक है, क्वाइट लाइवली थी. ठीक है, एंड द लिटिल किड लव्ड हर. ठीक है, द किड इज 10 years old. And the little kid also loved her because she also brought sweets with her every single time. And she would give him many sweets. And other than just those sweets, he absolutely loved her because of the stories she told. And his grandmother had all kinds of stories. So she had stories about growing up during World War One, stories about how she had played with Ouija boards. ठीक है, funny stories, sad stories. She had scary stories, stories involving tarot cards, fortune telling, and all of that stuff that she had done in her life. So most of the stories, the kid would listen and he would laugh off or forget about it. Uh, After just some time, she told him. But some stories of his grandma spooked him. Okay, he was only 10 at the time, so like you have to understand even the mildly scary ones would scare him. Um, what she would do while telling these scary stories was that she'd shut the lights off. ठीक है, फिर रात के टाइम पे मूनलाइट ऐसे कर्टन्स के थ्रू आ रहा है. ठीक है, she'd get really close to the child and close enough that he could see the wrinkles on her face. ठीक है, and like her deep blue eyes would directly stare at the child. And some of the stories that she told him gave him nightmares. And now that our protagonist is older, he's an adult. Years later, there's only one story that he can still remember. And that's the only story that stuck with him. It's the story about the Shar and Mr. Longfingers. So the grandmother had okay, don't laugh at Mr. Longfingers, just listen to the story. Okay? So the grandmother had told the child about Mr. Longfingers one night after he had asked about his grandmother's baths. ठीक है, like the grandmother used to love her baths. ठीक है, मतलब you know, right, people spend a lot of time in a bath, ऐसे bathtub में लेटे रहते थे with incense and candles and पूरा. So she would also do the same, the grandmother. So एक बार our little that kid, the protagonist, he asks his grandmother about the baths. ठीक है? And the grandmother would say that it was the only place that she could relax. It was the only place which was safe for her to relax. And she would say that, people like me who are sensitive to certain things, we have to take baths. ठीक है? And I couldn't possibly spend a long time in the shower, so I take long baths. So, and she says that spending a really long time in the shower could be far too risky. And the kid is now like confused as to why is it risky. Like he can't like he's trying to piece stuff up together. He can't imagine why the shower is risky. ठीक है? Then the grandmother would tell him that it's only risky if you close your eyes. If you close your eyes for longer than 10 seconds. The child is still confused, so he asks, like, what do you mean? Like, why 10 seconds? And the grandmother tells him, like, she asks him, do you ever play that one game? ठीक है, अपने friends के साथ playground में खेलता है क्या तू? In the one in which somebody like turns around and the others sneak up on them when they're not looking. The child nods, ठीक है, and the grandma nods as well. And the grandma says that it's just like that game. So it's just like that when you're in the shower, when you have your eyes closed. It's just like that when you're with Mr. Longfingers. At this point, the child has a chill running down his spine. Even though the name Mr. Longfingers might seem silly, the grandmother does not look like she's joking. So the child asks, who's Mr. Longfingers, grandma? She takes a deep breath. ठीक है? She lowered her voice and said that nobody exactly knows who Mr. Longfingers is. Because some people say that it's a creature attracted to heat and the smell that humans give off in the shower. Other people think that it's a demon that finds a way into our realm through the dense steam clouds. And nobody can say for sure who Mr. Longfingers is because the only ones who have actually seen Mr. Longfingers aren't ever going to be able to tell you. So the child is now scared. He asks, why not? Why are the people who have seen Mr. Longfingers not able to tell who or what Mr. Longfingers is? And the grandmother doesn't answer the question. She just says that you don't need to worry about it. As long as you remember the rules, you'll be fine. The child asks what the rules were. And she tells him that when you're in the shower, you try not to close your eyes for too long. 5 seconds is fine. 10 is also just about okay. But longer than that, and you start to feel something in the room with you. The child asks, like, what do you mean? And the grandmother says, you feel that somebody's watching you. And if you ever go longer than 15 seconds with your eyes closed, that's when you might start to hear a noise as well. The child asks, what kind of noise? And she says that it's small and soft tapping of fingers on the glass walls of the shower. He kept fingers drumming against the glass door. And she tells the child that if he ever hears that noise, then he should never open his eyes. She made him promise that he would never open his eyes in such a situation where he closed his eyes in the shower for more than 15 seconds and he starts hearing a tapping sound. At this point, the grandmother leaves the room. She goes to sleep. And The child also goes to sleep. Our protagonist has like tries to sleep at least. He barely slept that night. He wouldn't whenever he would try to close his eyes and rest, he would imagine a face pressed against the bedroom window, staring at him. For the few weeks to come, he had nightmares, terrible nightmares. Okay, he would have dreams about disembodied eyes watching him from the dark, long fingers reaching out and touching his exposing skin. So he had these nightmares, but it wasn't better when he was awake either. And no, he especially hated it when he had to shower. So every time he would take a shower, okay, he would remember he could. It was as if he could hear his grandmother's words. 5 seconds is fine, and 10 is just about okay. But any longer than that, and as these words rushed in his head, he would try to keep his eyes open the entire time. And there would be water dripping off of his face. There would be shampoo, which would go into his eyes and sting. So that, and he did all of this just to not keep his eyes closed. He so for this continues on for a few weeks, and the mother realizes that there's something wrong with the child. Okay, the child is scared. The child is not behaving like he used to, and she like asks the child, "Ki kya hua exactly?" And so he's like, "Arey, grandmother told me about Mr. Longfingers." This is when the mother got mad. Okay, and the child thought that he had made her mother mad. Okay, like she was really angry. But this time she wasn't angry with him. She was angry with the grandma. Um, the next night, like when he was about like the night he was about to sleep, he would press his ears on the wall of his room to hear what's going on in the next. He could hear his mother from the other room complaining to his father, okay, about what kind of stories the grandmother had told their child. So, and she's like, if you don't talk to your mother tomorrow, okay, once we wake up tomorrow, if you don't tell your mother to stop all of this, then it won't be good. Okay, because the child was having nightmares. She tells that think about our child, and the father nodded. Okay, so that very night, just before sleeping, the grandmother came into the child's room, and she told that, I would never let that bastard Mr. Longfingers hurt you, right? And the child just nods. Okay, so and the grandmother says that, yes, I would never let anything happen to you. You be rest assured, he will never come after you. The child goes to sleep after that. Uh, that night, he slept, still disturbed. In the morning, he could hear a heavy thumping sound when he got up. Right, so he sat upright. His room was quite quiet, and he couldn't hear anything from the wall that on the other side of which his parents was his parents' room. So the entire house was supposed to be silent, but it was not. He got up from his bed and walked down the hall, and he could hear the sound of rushing water from inside the bathroom. He went near the door. He started calling his grandma. He's like, "Grandma, grandma!" Like he calls out to his grandma. He starts knocking at the door, and he like instinctively he puts his hand on the handle and tries to rotate it and open it. At this point, he can even hear his parents in the background getting up and talking to each other. Like, what's going on? Kya ho raha hai? ठीक है, why is our son making such a ruckus? As he opens the door, as the child opens the door, ठीक है? And it's surprising to him because the door wasn't locked. He opens the door, and just as he opens the door, a cloud of steam rushes onto his face. His face is now warm, and just as about the steam is about to clear, his father rushes into the bathroom, and they both look at the grandmother lying on the floor inside the shower cubicle. She's lying on the floor, not moving. She's dead. She has one of her one hand of hers is curled towards her chest, and you can see the other one that's on the glass wall of the shower. You can see that as she fell, she scratched the glass wall. Her scratch was clearly ingrained in the wall. Then the police were called. The child was taken to another room. Uh, it's been years now since that incident. This was the only story that he could remember. This was the last thing that he knew about his grandmother. The last thing he knew about his grandmother was not something that everybody knew. His father had told him कि उसकी grandmother had passed away due to a heart attack and that it would have been absolutely painless and she would have died quickly without too much suffering. But the child knew better. And even right now, after so many years of this passing, his grandmother's passing, he still knows the truth. His wife, his current wife, thinks that she knows what's happening. ठीक है, his current wife thinks that she knows what he's going through. She thinks that she knows what he knows. And she says that it's not much. ठीक है, this whatever fear you have of showering right now. ठीक है, you also take long baths. Whatever fear you have of showering right now, whatever reason you don't shower for right now is because of the trauma of your grandmother's passing away. And this child who's not grown up, okay, he says that he thinks that whatever happened that night, nobody knows, and not even my wife can think that she knows what happened that night. They don't know what happened when his grandmother passed away because he knows the actual truth. Because just after the paramedics took the grandmother's body downstairs, he went into the bathroom and saw the scratch marks. And they weren't just on the inside. That's the story.
So that brings me into another story of mine, but this isn't from Reddit, because what happens with Reddit is people make up or exaggerate stories, but I can't make up or exaggerate the stories I remember vividly from my very own experience. Now, I was at my grandma's place. It's not in a pretty rural area. You could call it a town, but basically, she has a bungalow. I'll explain you the geographical area. Uh, it's basically what you call a bungalow township. So, like a series of bungalows across a road. There isn't an immediate forest, but there are not a lot of buildings inside the substreet. So, not a lot of commotion goes on. But yes, there are people that live around there. And I remember this vividly because it happened 2 weeks ago while I was at my grandma's place. Or as you know, with rural areas or towns, lights बहुत बार जाती है. They have an inverter or what they call a battery. तो थोड़ी जगह पे light रहती है. But it cannot support every light. And it was a pretty big bungalow. तो जब light गई थी for the fourth time that day, which was unusual, मैं बाथरूम में गया था और लाइट्स जो थी मैंने ऑन की, और बाकी सारे द सराउंडिंग लाइट्स, इवन बाहर के लाइट सारे बंद थे, कुछ नहीं था. एंड आफ्टर दैट आई सडनली हर्ड footsteps. Now, these footsteps were the footsteps we all know, like rubber or hard leather sandals stomping against a concrete floor, which was the floor that was outside. They weren't any mechanical sounds or any working sounds or any door sounds. It was because that happened for around 40 seconds straight, and I know what I heard. And you know what I heard as well because I have the recording. माइक की क्वालिटी उतनी अच्छी नहीं थी. इट कैन बी प्रिज्यूम कि वो कोई और फुटस्टेप्स थे या कुछ और था. बट आई नो व्हाट आई हर्ड एंड आई मेड श्योर आई हर्ड इट प्रॉपर्ली. एंड दीज वर ओनली फुटस्टेप्स. एंड यू माइट से ठीक है, फुटस्टेप्स हो गए किसी के, दैट्स फाइन. कोई भी कभी भी आ सकता है, चल सकता है बाहर. लाइट होगी तो वो जनरेटर ऑन करने गए होंगे. बट नो, these were loud, forceful footsteps that banged against the floor intentionally. Matlab, it was not like some drunk person who was stumbling on his way there. They were intentionally loud. They required extra effort to bang against the floor. And as I heard from the bathroom vents, the footsteps would increase in volume and decrease. Either this would mean the person was in the same distance from the vents and would increase the intensity or decrease the intensity of their footsteps, or that means they were pacing around the little pathway there. And another thing is कि जो वो वेंट के बाहर इमीडिएट सराउंडिंग्स है, उसके डायरेक्टली आगे एक बंगलो है. देयर इज नो लॉन एरिया. It's just a 1 foot space till our common bungalow boundary or wall, and then another 1 foot space after which the second bungalow's wall starts. So it's a pretty narrow area, an area you can barely go walking through without brushing against the walls. So obviously, nobody was walking there. And even if they were, not with that intensity. It was simply impractical and pretty difficult to do. And especially when सारे lights गए हुए थे. I checked as well. Even मैं बाहर जाके देखा, कोई lights on नहीं थे वहाँ पे, कुछ नहीं था. I did ask my grandma कि वो क्या था, and she said she didn't hear any noise. But she said the neighbors were not extremely active. वो रहते हैं, पर वो ऐसे नहीं कि रोज रहते हैं. और जब लाइट वापस आई एंड द इन्वर्टर्स वर नीडेड, मतलब लाइट सारे ऑटोमेटिकली ऑन हो जाते हैं, तभी भी मैं बाहर जाके देखा, नॉट अ सिंगल लाइट was on in their bungalow. And this was about 10 minutes after I heard the footsteps. So it wasn't like they just slept. Either it was them or it wasn't them. And it was highly likely that it wasn't. And I'm extremely sure that they were footsteps, and they were wooden footsteps. Footsteps of leather sandals against the concrete, banging intensely. And that compounds to the fact that there were no lights during that time. There's no space to walk. The neighbors weren't there. All the lights were off. There was nothing going on there. It's not a pretty active area, and nobody walks through that. So I don't know what happened. It's unusual for that to happen. Um, but that incident brought back memories. to another incident in that very same place. So वही area पे. By the way, it's a long bungalow, not a very uniform one. So it's pretty deep. तो उसके पहले मतलब एंट्रेंस के फर्देस्ट पॉइंट से बाथरूम है और फिर उसके बीच में किचन आता है जिसके बाहर किचन का विंडो है. एंड अगेन द सेम थिंग, 1 फुट का डिस्टेंस फ्रॉम हमारे बंगलो का वॉल, कॉमन शेड वॉल, और फिर उसके आगे दूसरा बंगलो. Barely any space to walk and it's a restricted area as well. मतलब it is surrounded on all sides by fences. तो कोई उसके साइड से जाता नहीं है like to go somewhere. वापस वही हुआ था. This was around 5 years ago when I was little. और मैं मेरे पापा के साथ अकेला था घर पे. बारिश आई थी उस दिन और लाइट्स चली गई थी. बट द वर्स्ट पार्ट वाज देयर वाज नो इन्वर्टर. इन्वर्टर खराब हो गया था. सो पापा ने अपने फ़ोन का फ्लैश लाइट चलाया और वो किचन में कुछ बना रहे थे सबके लिए. While everybody was about to come back, there were more people, but they were all outside. And बाहर बहुत जोर से बारिश चालू थी. Like rainfall, thunder, everything. Not a place you would go outside in, especially when there was no light. मतलब headlights नहीं काम करते उस टाइम पे, कुछ नहीं काम करता. It isn't like a local isolated blackout. मतलब वो पूरे एरिया में होता है, which is common in rural areas. um, और हम किचन पे पापा खाना बना रहे थे और कोई लाइट नहीं थे तो मैं पापा के साथ ही खड़ा था. There was no light in the surrounding, no light outside. And again, this is in the middle part of the bungalow. ज्यादा जो बाहर की आवाज है in front of the bungalow वो नहीं आती. And again, I heard the sound of 2 little kids, a boy and a girl, laughing and playing outside. It sounded like it was playing because they were having reciprocal laughs, and maybe I heard a few footsteps, but I don't quite remember. But I do remember distinctly 2 little kids laughing and playing. और आई थिंक वी हैव ऑल हर्ड दैट. मतलब कोई दूर से ऐसे कोई बच्ची चिल्लाती है लाइक आउट ऑफ जॉय, और कोई बच्चा कुछ बोलता है while playing. But it wasn't that. It was right outside the window. It wasn't some distant sound. You can differentiate between the two. But it was like हमारे विंडो के बाहर अगर मैं नीचे देखूं, I could see the 2 children. That was how close the sound was. And it went on for 15 seconds. मेरे पापा ने वो सुना but he just disregarded it. And it kept going on वो 15 सेकंड के लिए. And then it stopped again. वहां पे कोई खेलता नहीं है, वहां पे कोई बच्चे नहीं है जो नेबर के है या किसी के है. सो वो उधर वो पैसेज वे में आके खेलने नहीं वाले हैं.
Shit.
बट आई स्टिल रिमेम्बर इट. और फिर उसके डायरेक्टली बाद लाइट आ गई थी एंड एवरीथिंग वेंट बैक टू नॉर्मल.
Another, this reminded me of another thing. I mean, I was going to talk about this later, since you've spoken about these kids. There's an urban legend, ठीक है, about black-eyed kids. So it's the legend of black-eyed children, and these children do not look threatening. ठीक है, their eyes are, like as the name suggests, their eyes are pure black. ठीक है, the वो लोग का pupil ही नहीं, मतलब पूरा पूरा eyes black होता है. ठीक है, and some people say that these are demons who are like, if you let them, like what they do is they come to you, they ask for help, they come to your home, they tell you, they ask to be let inside, they come to your car, they try to hitchhike and enter your car. And some people say that these are demons that if you let into your house or car, It's letting them into your life. And this urban legend, so this urban legend supposedly originated in about in the 1980s or 1996, that kind of time. And इसके अंदर भी एक और, like, I have another story of this. So there's this one story, ठीक है, about an elderly couple. It was a snowy place. ठीक है, ये लोग के घर पे दो ऐसे ही black eyed children आ गए. एक a boy and a girl. And what they said was, our parents will be here soon. Maybe come in. And thinking that अरे बहुत snow है बाहर, they might need help. They let the boy inside, the elderly couple. The wife goes in the kitchen to make some hot cocoa for them. And the husband starts asking these children questions. But uh, these questions were left unanswered. So they don't answer his questions. And instead, what happens is they ask if they could use the restroom. So while they're asking this, वो लोगों के पास कुछ cats है. So one of these, ये elderly couple के cat, uh, one of these comes near the kid and starts hissing. So ये लोगों को समझ में नहीं आता why the cat was scared and angry at the children. The wife came back with the hot cocoa, and she finally got a good look at them. ठीक है, बाहर वो लोग जब बात कर रहे थे, she couldn't exactly see their face at that time. So now she comes back and looks at their faces, and she realizes that their eyes don't have any white in them. They're absolutely black. Um, she sees this, or फिर she leads them to the bathroom, to the restroom, and then she asks her husband, कि, did you see their eyes? And he doesn't say anything. Instead, he shows her his hand, which was full of blood from a nosebleed. So the husband's nose had started bleeding. After some time, the power of the house suddenly went out. So like the lights got off. Electricity चला गया घर से. The husband has मतलब nosebleed होने लगा है husband को. And in some time, ठीक है, just after the children come back from the restroom, the children start walking towards the door. They tell the woman that their parents had arrived. But the unusual thing that the woman realized was that they were inside the house and they couldn't have known कि वो लोग के parents बाहर है, because they couldn't have seen. क्या, मेरे को पीछे से आवाज आई मेरे. The cupboard actually creaked right now. कोई है नहीं. Okay. So
Hmm.
they couldn't have heard or seen their parents
No
come.
one.
ठीक है, they couldn't have known that their parents had come. So that happens. Just as they leave the house, just as the second child, the girl, the last one to leave the house, takes a step outside, the power comes back. Light वापस आ जाता है. And throughout that next week, bad things happen to this couple. So before that, um, ये बच्चे बाहर जाते हैं, and in a like at a really far distance, you can see two men like figure, long, tall people with tall arms, tall fingers, two dark figures standing at a distance. The children approach these people. The wife, ठीक है, the elderly couple के जो wife है, she waves at these people, trying to get a reaction, but they don't wave back. And as the children go towards these dark figures, in the blink of an eye, she doesn't even realize when, but they all disappear. There's no one there. In the following week, weird stuff happens to their home. Three of their four cats went missing, and the fourth cat was found dead in a pool of its own bright red blood. The husband continued to have these nosebleeds, and when they got this checked out with the doctor, uh, he was diagnosed with skin cancer. So yes, that's the story. That's one incident with these black-eyed children. They bring misfortune. They let the devil, they let demons enter their house and their lives.
My story comes from the dense, quiet forests of the Konkan coast. This story is about Rohit. He was a man of science, GPS tools, and topography. He was the one who would never believe in ghosts, but what happened to him gave him second thoughts. So, this story started with something simple. While surveying a dried up stream bed, Rohit came across a perfect circle of stones. In the middle, there was this small rusted metal plate, coordinates scratched into it. Just numbers, nothing else. Naturally, he plugged those coordinates into his GPS. It pointed to a spot about 3 kilometers into the jungle. There were no paths to be seen, no landmarks. Into his curiosity, he rushed. He was a bit overconfident too. He hiked deep into the forest, and he felt as if this jungle started to get quieter. There were no bird calls, no rustling of leaves, just an unnatural stillness. And he also felt like someone was constantly watching him. And after a while, when he reached the coordinates, all he found were three massive trees twisted unnaturally close around each other. But here's where it gets weird. His GPS started glitching. First, it said he was at the location. Then suddenly, it placed him 2 kilometers away. Then the screen just died. Full battery. Gone. That night, he decided to camp nearby. And, and it was about midnight when Rohit woke up to branches snapping. He could hear heavy footsteps around his tent. And when he looked out, there was nothing there. But he noticed something chilling. All the trail markers he had left, all gone, completely disappeared. And his GPS screen, which had mysteriously powered back on, he could see a new set of coordinates, but he had never entered any coordinates after the last one. He was scared. He didn't sleep rest of the night. Uh, at dawn, he rushed back to the village and informed a local about what had happened. The local went silent. He said that what he knew what that was about. That was a place that didn't like to be measured. No one really went there. This is where the twist comes. After a while, when Rohit did some research, things started to make sense. The coordinates, they actually matched the site of an abandoned military communication post, which were a part of a now defunct coastal radar system. There were also signal jammers which were placed quite a while ago, which caused this GPS to fluctuate and new set of coordinates he could see. And the footsteps he heard, most likely wild boars, which was confirmed by the villagers.
But what about those other coordinates?
No one knows. And what about the trail markers that had disappeared? There is this really old Victorian era image I want to show you. It is a photo of a bunch of children at the school in Victorian era, and at first it seems really normal, but when you look at this little girl who looks really pale, almost as if she's dead,
Hmm.
this girl,
She doesn't have an expression
closely,
on her face.
if you look closely, she's tied to the curtain. She isn't alive.
एक minute, क्या? She's tied to the curtain.
Hmm,
Oh, रोप आ रहा है. रोप लाइक ऊपर से दिख रहा है. उसके उसके देखना. टू हर लेफ्ट. वो
hmm,
रोप ऊपर की तरफ जा रहा है.
right.
But what is
She is
this
dead.
about?
She died shortly before this photo was taken, and her parents decided to let her be a part of this photo, as photos were really rare at that time. There was also this popular thing about Victorian post-mortem pictures, where they took pictures of dead people and showed as if they were alive.
What about the interesting part?
There is no interesting part. Oh yes, there is, but okay, Romam, listen to me. मेरे
Yeah.
फोन में कुछ महीनों पहले डेट्स आते हैं, तब टाइमलाइन के अकॉर्डिंग फोटोज होते हैं, ईयर के अकॉर्डिंग। तो मैंने ये फोन 2024 में लिया था। 2024 और 2025 के फाइल्स होंगे, पर 2024 के पहले 2008, जब आईफोन 15 ऑब्वियसली नहीं था, और
Were you born
यस,
even back then?
नो आई वाज, तो 2008 का टाइमलाइन में ये फोटो दिखा रहा था। आई डोंट नो हाउ इट केम देयर।
This photo,
यस, अर्नव नोज।
like
मैंने
this
देखा है.
current, ये
दिस
Victorian वाला.
एग्जैक्ट फोटो।
हाँ.
Shit, shit. That's so creepy.
Or and Apple isn't really very permissive
Victorian.
when you go to file editing. मैं ये probably Android में कर सकता हूँ, पर ये Apple में नहीं होता. So
Shit.
there's that.
I wanted to talk about this topic. So, have you guys ever heard of the term frogging?
नहीं.
आई हैव नॉट।
It's it's spelt with a ph. Frogging. Okay, PHROGGING, and it's related to like the way frogs hop from one place to another. These frogs also hop from one place to another. So frogging basically means it is an act of living in somebody else's house without their knowledge, without their consent. And this, so basically I'll tell you how frogging works. And there have been so many incidents on the internet about frogging. मैं सर्च कर रहा था, रिसर्च कर रहा था इस एपिसोड के लिए, एंड आई फाउंड दिस, एंड इट वाज एक्सट्रीमली डिस्टर्बिंग. सो आई टेल यू अ फ्यू इंसिडेंट्स व्हिच हैपेंड. ठीक है. सो देयर वाज दिस मैन, ठीक है, वो अपार्टमेंट में रहता था अपने, एंड ही नोटिस्ड कि बहुत बार he would leave doors open. So he would close doors and they would turn out to be open after some time. He would फिर धीरे धीरे उसके फ्रिज के अंदर से खाना कम होते जाता है. He could hear footsteps randomly. He could hear voices. ठीक है, but since it was like he lived in his apartment, उसको लग he just like let it be. ठीक है, like खाना गया तो he would be like हाँ मैं नहीं खाया होगा, I wouldn't remember. या फिर अपार्टमेंट तो बाहर से कहीं आवाज आ रही होगी. But one day he installed a camera, and when he went outside, after 10 to 20 minutes of him being outside, a woman, an old woman, came out of his closet, and she was the one who was living in his house without his knowledge. एक मिनट, मेरी मम्मी आ गई है, दरवाजा खोलना पड़ेगा.
मुझे मेरा क्लोजेट चेक करना पड़ेगा एक्चुअली. दैट ब्रिंग्स मी टू अनदर इंसिडेंट ऑफ फ्रॉगिंग. मुझे पता है. um, एक कपल रहते थे. एक लाइक नॉर्मल जो अमेरिकन घर होता है वैसे. और वहां पे जब वो रात में सोते थे तो उनको नीचे से अपने बेड के नीचे से बैंग्स सुनाई देते थे. लाइक उनका अपार्टमेंट नहीं था. दे हैड अ नॉर्मल घर एंड उसके घर के नीचे ऑब्वियसली कुछ चालू नहीं होता. पर उनके घर बेड के डायरेक्ट नीचे दे कुड हियर थड्स ऑफ लाइक कंटिन्यूअस रिदमिक थड्स. एंड दे वर नॉट लाइक ऐसे मशीन या पाइप के या कुछ. लाइक दे वर एक्चुअल फोर्सफुल थड्स. एंड ये एक दो नाइट्स के लिए हुआ. और उसके बाद दे वेंट टू द पुलिस स्टेशन टू कंप्लेन. और जब वो वापस आए and the police investigated, what they saw inside, what they saw under that was a man with a knife and cocaine with him. So that was a man who used to go inside people's beds. या सिर्फ उनके बेड पे गया था cocaine snort करके. He used to stab his way through the bed to kill the people, obviously under the influence of drugs.
How did they survive through those 2 nights?
Cocaine.
Oh, how did the couple survive?
Maybe he wasn't there.
Cocaine.
मतलब maybe he wasn't there at that time. There have been so many cases of frogging. ठीक है कि you don't, the people living in the house don't even realize कि तेरे घर पे कोई होगा. So just imagine, Razvan, तेरे घर पर unbeknownst to you कोई तो रहता है. And
Don't worry. Anybody who lives in Mumbai doesn't have to worry because their homes
Yeah.
aren't big enough.
अरे ये लोग क्लोजेट में रह रहे हैं, लोग बेड के अंदर रह रहे हैं, लोग हाँ भी बेसमेंट और रूफ मतलब एटिक में भी रहते हैं, लेकिन मुंबई में
Attic.
नहीं मिलेगा उतना. ठीक है, लेकिन हाँ बट these फ्रॉगिंग केसेस आर सो कॉमन. अभी और एक केस है where there was this couple. They had a really small child, like a baby. ठीक है, they had a baby at their house, like it was their baby. So their neighbor, ठीक है, एक रात क्या हो रहा था, द मैन नोटिस्ड कि सीलिंग में से देयर वाज अ लाइट, ठीक है, व्हिच वाज फ्लैशिंग, जो इधर उधर घूम रहा था. एंड ही रियलाइज्ड कि ऐसा हो रहा है. ही कॉल्ड द कॉप्स. इवेंचुअली पता चला कि इट वाज देयर नेबर, अ 69-year-old मैन, जो वो लोग के घर में बैठ के देख रहा था वो लोगों को. ही वाज ऑब्जर्विंग देम. और घर में
Oh,
दूसरी जगह पर भी दे बाद में पता चला कि देयर वर होल्स ड्रिल्ड इनटू द वॉल्स, होल्स ड्रिल्ड इनटू द रूफ, एंड ही वाज स्पाइंग ऑन दीस पीपल, दिस नेबर. चेक कर ले. वेरी गुड,
Any
वेरी गुड, गुड एक्टिंग.
repetitive?
to end on a light note, I would say. एक रात मैं सोया था मेरे बुआ के घर पे.
गुड.
और आई एम नॉट वेरी कंफर्टेबल व्हेन आई स्लीप इन अदर पीपल्स होम. तो मैं कभी बीच में उठ जाता हूँ या ये होता हूँ बिकॉज देयर इज नो होम लाइक योर होम, नो बेड लाइक योर्स. एनीवेज, मैं एक बार से उठता हूँ बट आई डोंट रियली कंप्लीटली वेक अप. आई जस्ट लाइटली ओपन माय आईज एंड जस्ट क्लोज देम अगेन. एंड बहुत जब रात में तुम स्लाइटली आईज ओपन करते हो, you can't really see well. But what I saw that night was, I was sleeping alone, by the way, in the hall. I saw a huge, basically white cloth or gown float up there in front of me, but I didn't really do anything. I was either scared or too, um, you know, flabbergasted to even react at night. मतलब मैं नींद में था. Like I was like whatever, खा जाएगा मुझे भूत. That's fine.
We believe you.
And I slept again. I closed my. I was delirious probably.
Hey,
ऐसा I
we
thought.
believe you.
और फिर मैं
Totally.
हाँ नहीं, but what happened was real and I know that. And जब मैं वापस, मैं आंखें बंद किया, फिर मैं उठा, फिर मैं मेरी बुआ को बोला, कोई तो आया था एकदम ऐसे बड़े वाइट कलर, प्योर वाइट कलर के गाउन में, एंड जस्ट फ्लोटेड अप देयर एंड वेंट बैक. एंड शी सेड हाँ हाँ, मैं ना 4 बजे ऐसे उठ के आई थी ऐसे, और फिर वापस चली गई.
क्या? क्यों?
I don't know. And she was completely silent. मतलब she just came there. Like मैं बता रहा हूँ ऐसे, she just तुम मेरी आंखें हो. She just came ऐसे हॉलवे से, खड़ी रही 2 सेकंड के लिए, and just went back. No sound, no nothing. कुछ नहीं किया उसने, बस ऐसे she just stood there and went back.
Maybe
फैजान
she
क्या
was
हुआ?
looking at the time. I think I just
Hmm.
heard loud screams outside.
बच्चे खेल रहे होंगे
Oh,
यार. And this is not me
इसमें
joking.
विंडो
तेरे
के बाहर.
तेरे सोसाइटी में बच्चे खेल रहे होंगे actually. Like I
कोई
feel it.
बच्चे नहीं है.
विंडो के बाहर. अरे बच्चा किडनैप हो रहा होगा यार. Anyways,
नहीं पर
so
ऐस
This is
moving
going
on.
to seem so fake. Even if it's real, this is going to seem so fake in the episode.
We
what
are not fake, guys. I have not faked a single story of mine just
nor
for
have
to
I.
make it better. मतलब I have said it as it was. मतलब मैंने भी ऐसा बोला नहीं कि बुआ मेरी भूत थी. मतलब बुआ नहीं बोला, वो 4 बजे रैंडमली उठ के आई थी.
तेरी बुआ ही भूत थी मतलब.
हाँ
This
तेरी
थी तेरी
बुआ
बुआ.
एपिसोड
उसने
देखेगी.
Okay, let's wrap this episode. So that's it for today's episode. We talked about a lot of stuff. Uh, huh. Yes. Thank you. Good. We talked about a lot of stuff. We told each other ghost stories. अगर अच्छा लगा तो सब्सक्राइब करो. नहीं अच्छा लगा तो सब्सक्राइब करो. अगर अच्छा लगा तो कमेंट करो एंड कमेंट which part was your favorite. अगर अच्छा नहीं लगा तो भी कमेंट करो क्यों आपको वीडियो अच्छा लगा. गुड बाय.
और अगर तुम्हें अच्छा नहीं लगा हो,
क्या बोल रहा है?
and then I know where you live and I will find you
And
and I
also
will come to your house at night. I
look out
will
for
tap
black-eyed
my
people.
fing. I will come to a house black-eyed and tap my fingers on your glass panes. Huh. And I
And
will
and and
ask you, I will ask you why the video was bad. Anyways,
Goodbye.
and remember, ghosts are not real.
Sure. Goodbye and good evening.